I'll go ahead and get started. I'm heartened to see you all here tonight. I presume we're all here because some of you are missing members of your family that are cats, and some of you are here because you're rescue folks and just showed an interest. So, my name is Shannon Jay, and I am deeply involved in the campfire cat rescue effort. My background is I spent between the Tubbs fire, the car fire, and the campfire, somewhere north of 1,000 hours in the burn zone hunting fire cats, most all of it at night. And I'll be the first to tell you I am not an expert. I don't have all the answers, but I reckon 1,000 hours in the burn zone hunting fire cats is worth a little bit. And yes, ma'am. You're the first person in my life to tell me I wasn't speaking loud enough. I owe you a drink. So, I've spent in excess of 1,000 hours in burn zones, and I don't want to get too terribly into depth on how that occurred, but I was off on some medical leave during the Tubbs fire last year in Sonoma County, and at the time, that fire was the most devastating fire in state history and very likely U.S. history until this fire dwarfed it. And I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 hours in that burn zone, another 80 or so in the car fire zone, and a whole bunch in this zone in the last 3 weeks. I'm a full-time career law enforcement officer with the National Park Service. I have 30 years on, and I happened last year to be off work due to a brain tumor and surgery and recovery. So I was off work for many, many months, and it happened to correspond with the Tubbs fire. And I have cats. I'm a crazy cat man. I make no apology for it. And I realized the moment I saw how big that fire was that it was that there were going to be many families and many cats that needed to be rescued. And I just sort of dove in head first. And along that path, I sort of got good at it. And people online in the media are calling me an expert. Well, I'm not an expert. I don't claim that status. I really don't like labels. That being said, I do have some experience, and I learned a lot through successes and failures on some things that might work for you folks, and my job is just to pass them on to you and see if I can help you. I will claim to be expert status at 2 things on this earth. One is drinking beer and fishing. Nice. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not. And I got pretty good at rescuing fire cats. And I was asked to do a session or a presentation, if you will, at the car fire. And then since I got involved in this effort, I've been asked to do the same here. I think it's important that when you have something you can pass on to other people that may help them, that you should share that. And so that's sort of the origins of my background. And I can tell you, can I ask maybe a show of hands how many folks are here because you are missing your own fire cats? It looks like about 90% of you, if my not great math skills are correct. And I would like to start by telling you that you all have lived, and I imagine a whole bunch of you in this room have lost your homes, and please accept my deepest sympathies. I lost a home when I was an infant, but don't remember it. But other than that, I have not been affected by this, so I don't know what you're going through, but I can only be empathetic to you and this dark path that is just a shadow of a cloud of darkness that has come over you. And if I can help you get your fire cats back, then I hope that could bring some light back to you. I really, is that any better?
Be a little louder.
Be a little louder.
People on screen
wow, I can't believe it. So that is what I wanted to do. I will tell you this. I've been in that burn zone in campfire for probably 80 plus hours in the burn zone hunting fire cats. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of hope. I've seen some tragedy. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cats in that burn zone waiting to be rescued. Hundreds. I rescued a critically injured cat. I burned cat on day 16. Last Saturday on the 23rd, I rescued a fire cat that was without food and maybe some water for 23 days. He probably lost well over half his body weight, and he is alive, and he is healing. And my segue into that is, you cannot assume your cat has perished. It may have. The odds are that someone in this room, your cat didn't make it. Those are the odds. But I tell people this all the time, and I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's skirts. Until you find a body of remains, do not assume your cat has perished. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're making the biggest mistake you could possibly make. And I'll get into the why of that in a couple minutes, but the real deal here is that these animals, somehow they find a way. They just do. I have never, the number one reason that people do not get their lost animals back, cats particular, is because they gave up. That is far and away because they gave up. And I'm not a pastor, I'm not a reverend, I'm not going to sit up here and preach the gospel. I'm going to tell you this though, if you take one thing away from this, you have a delivery to make, young lady.
Yeah, for lunch or viewers.
Isn't that delicious? Logan's
I'll
Roadhouse.
take them, thank you.
You can have that.
Jack. Sweet potato fries. So, that is the number one thing that it causes animals to never be recovered because the folks gave up. And it's a human thing. You haven't seen the animal. It was a firestorm that has never been seen before anywhere in this country. And it would be a natural inclination to go, I cut my losses. And you know what? We do that as a natural mechanism to protect ourselves. I'm just going to assume my cat's gone. I don't want to stress. I don't want to worry. I just have to come to the truth, my own truth, that my cat has not made it. And you can't do that. I have never seen an animal with a will to survive like a cat. And I'm going to tell you the quintessential example of that occurred to me last year on November 3rd at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of nowhere at the Tubbs Fire. I was driving down the road, and if you know much about that fire, it burned deep into country areas, and it burned right into a city where 12 square blocks and 800 homes are scorched or gone. And Paradise, in the areas I worked in the deep countries, very similar country, without so many conifers or fir trees and pine trees, but very similar. And I was driving about 2 o'clock in the morning with my hand out the window in the winter with a flashlight, and I caught something that reflected for just blip. It was that fast. What was that? And I backed up my truck, and I turned my flashlight on and put my binoculars up, and there was a cat in the bush about 40 yards away, and I had caught one half of one of his eyes. And when it was all said and done, it took me an hour and a half to rescue this cat, whose name is Brutus. And this was day 26. Brutus was severely burned on all 4 of his feet. Ears burned off, tail, his entire coat felt like a Brillo pad. And Brutus was still alive. He had lost over half his body weight and had no food and no water for 26 days. Today, Brutus is healed and he is healthy. So if you take nothing away from this, you got to remember, cats have a will to survive like nothing I have ever seen in my life. It's astounding. And I lived it and I breathed it and I saw it for 1,000 hours. They don't want to leave this planet. They just don't. So I think it's important for you to take that to heart. So this presentation I'm giving you is there are some specific stuff about equipment and tactics that are related to folks who are going to do the rescuing, helping other people can't help themselves, and more than anything else, I want to leave something with you homeowners so when you get back in the zone that you can start this process yourself, because you're going to have to. There's not enough rescuers. There's been a lot of controversy swirling around this entire effort. There's been a lot of fingers pointed and a lot of issues. There have been many shortcomings, and I don't care about that at this point. A lot of mistakes have been made on this path, but I can't change that, and neither can you. We can move forward and do everything you can to put something into this effort to get these animals safely rescued. And that winter's coming, winter is here, and there are still survivors out there. There are burned cats out there. There's just, like I told you, when it comes to fighting for its life, a cat will fight like the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and it's raining. and that's funny, but it's true. It's absolutely true. They just dig in, and they'll just go all the way to the very end. So have heart, believe that your cat may be out there, and I wish I don't have the fancy PowerPoint and audio-visual presentation to give. It's just me talking. My other partner who I work with and I 2 weeks ago rescued a cat named Hollis, big orange cat. And Hollis was inside his house when it burned. Hollis doesn't have a mark on him. Windows blow out of houses before the entire structure catches fire. Many cats perish.
Say that one more time.
Windows will blow out of houses before the entire house is consumed, giving a cat a potential escape route. So Hollis was inside his home when it burned. And we trapped him maybe 12 days ago. Hollis doesn't have a mark on him. He was in the house. Now, surely many cats did perish in homes, but don't make these assumptions. So that is sort of like the motivation and hope I want to give you is stories like Brutus. And yes, ma'am.
What about mobile homes? Is that the same kind of?
I'm not a structural engineer, but I would presume windows blow out,
The same.
and an animal can have an escape route. It's amazing. It just really is. So I'm not trying here to give false hope. I'm here to give hope and talk to you about the things that I can pass on to you on how to get your cat back. So some of the stuff will be directly related to folks who do animal rescue. Maybe not as a profession, but they're going to be out in the field and helping other folks and some of the equipment. But in the end, a couple things about cat behavior. Cats are divided into different categories based on their personalities, and you know your cat's personalities. Some of your cats were indoor only. Some of your cats were outdoor only. Some of yours were half feral. Some of yours were in between. But generally, a cat will be divided into several categories. The most difficult one is the xenophobic cat. This cat is in its normal life, sort of skittish, little cagey. You have guests come over, what does the cat do? Pew, bails into the back room, hides under the bed, guests go away, cat comes back out. And then on the polar opposite, you have the cat who's just the clown. He's social, he hangs around, he'll come with his tail in the air, he'll walk up to any stranger on the street. He just is overly trusting. Then you got cats that are sort of clowns, some are in between, some are troublemakers. But in the end, all of these cats' behavior has changed. Their behavior has changed. They are under extreme duress. They're scared out of their minds. Many are without food and water. Some of them are injured, and some of them are just malnourished and not thriving. And that changes their behavior. Now they've been displaced from their whole home, and everything around them is like, what on God's earth is this? Scorched, burnt, bare earth in every direction. And you're like, how the hell did they do it? They figured it out. And their behavior changes dramatically. I will tell you that the vast majority of the cats I have rescued was well after dark. They have gone to ground. They are cagey, they're sketchy, they're scared, they're frightened of everything. Even a normally gregarious cat that would be one of those socialite cats like, hey, you shake the kitty bag and the cat comes from 800 yards away at a 100-yard sprint. But these cats aren't doing that anymore. Rarely have I seen a cat. I've had one cat in this burn zone where I drove down the road and there's a cat standing on the side of the road and he's kind of looking at me, and I parked across the street and I took out my little kibble and I went and he went like tail came in the air, boom, right across the street, grabbed him and was done. That is rare.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, there is no rule. All the rules are sort of broken here. And there is nothing really absolute, but I will tell you, most of the time the cats have gone nocturnal. They're frightened of everything and they're hiding. Yes, sir.
So if they're nocturnal, and the curfew's at 5 p.m. for any of the zones that they're open already.
That is a valid concern, and that's something to chat about. I sort of haven't been keeping pulse of that, but it sounds like maybe the curfew is 8. You have to be off the street from 8 o'clock to 6 in the morning. So 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So you get 3 hours, 4 hours of darkness. In some areas, I don't know. You would have to validate that. I saw a press conference with the sheriff 2 nights ago, and I remember the sheriff was saying 8 o'clock. So if you're running around through town, our officers are probably going to stop you, and they'll want to know what's going on, and they'll understand. It'll get figured out. So there's sort of some ways around that, and I'll definitely touch on that. So the cats have gone to ground. They're hiding. They're scared, and they're desperate at this point because we're day 28 and a lot of them had no food. So you may have those ones that wander in the day, but I was out today in the burn zone for 8 hours and I saw one cat. One. And I know how to find cats. I know how to find cats. I may not be good at a lot of things, but I can find cats. So I just, all this time doing it, you just learn your eye, you train your eye on what to see, what to look for. And I saw one cat today. Now, if you were driving that burn zone, like I have done a few times in the evenings, they are everywhere. They're everywhere. It's like, I don't know, something like out of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, where all the birds go crazy, but the cats are everywhere, like some Stephen King movie. They're everywhere. They really and truly are. And so that is going to be the time that you are going to look for your cats. Now, when you get a chance to return to your properties and you have an opportunity to go there, you may have one of those cats when you drive up for the first time, your cat's sitting in the driveway waiting for you. We are getting kind of toward the outside limits of when that would happen. But an example would be Darren Helms, Ignatius, some variety of Siamese. There's too many for me to remember. So I've been in touch with those folks, and they had access. This is like 2 nights ago. Or was it last night or 2 nights ago? And they said, we're going up. We're taking the trap, we're going up. So they went up there. They had a chance to slip in just before dark about a week earlier and saw a cat, and they were like, that's him. Or like a block away. So they went back in there 2 nights ago, and I forgot Darren's wife. I forgot her name. Anyone know her name? Teresa? No, maybe. She said we set the trap. It was cold outside, so we jumped in the truck and we're getting warm. And all of a sudden we see this cat coming, and it looks like him. And she'd also put a little bit of food outside the trap. And she said she sees him. She's like, that's him, and he's eating. And she quietly slips out of the truck and she walks right up to him and picks him up. Rare. It's rare. Another great example in the opposite direction is the kitty named Taco. Taco comes from Honey Run Road. Taco is a calico, and I've been hunting Taco for over 3 weeks. So Taco's family had access in there because Lower Honey Run was opened up a little bit sooner than the others. So they had access, and she was. I told her I'd put food out, and I had her on camera in the evenings. And so Sandy, about a week after I was there, because I got a real job and I live in the Bay Area, so in between when I was here, she sends me a message. She says, well, we've been up there every single night from late afternoon to the evening. We're calling, and she's not answering, and I want to thank you for helping me, but that's just how it is. And I like tap the brakes here. Let's just back off here. Taco is alive. Well, she didn't come to me. She's not going to come to you, Sandy. She's scared of anything and everything, including you. And that's sort of a disconnect for us. Like, these are our babies. What do you mean you're scared of me? They are. They're frightened of you. So every time she went up there, she would sometimes be there for an hour or two. Nothing. Not a peep, not a sound, not anything. But I had my cameras in there, and I was seeing Taco's patterns as she would come out late at night when no one's around, and she was not going to come back to them. It just wasn't going to happen, because that's the norm. That is not an absolute, but that is the normal. 80% of cats are scared to death. So eventually, I set a trap for Taco. I'll get into the trapping stuff a little bit later, but Taco was reunited this morning. Taco's home. And so that's just another example. Like, you might have that cat, they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I had a couple of those at the Tubbs fire. These cats were seemingly completely unaffected, despite scorched bare earth within 3 square miles. And they're like, hey, I'm just out hanging out. I'm like, okay. But it's rare. It's rare, so don't expect your cats to be there. Be hopeful. So what the first thing you need to do when you get home is get food and water out. Now, you may come home and there's already food and water out, because I know there's this bombardment of several Facebook pages with lots of animal listings, and there is some congruity to it, but there's also some incongruity. So some are on some page and not on the other. So you very well may have addresses where someone at some point had put food and water there. So the number one thing you need to do is get some food and water in there. And I'm going to tell you about, if you just leave a bowl of kibble, kibble doesn't smell very much. And a cat has incredibly acute senses. Incredibly. Their sense of smell is many-fold what a human's is. much less than a dog, but it's powerful. They can smell stuff. I mean, I can't tell you how many times where I dropped a little nugget of kibble on the carpet that blends in, and the cat finds it in like 3 seconds. Like, they just have good smell, but they cannot smell that kibble from very far away. So here's what you need to do. I'll take a bunch of old rags, a bunch of t-shirts, just snip up an old cloth. I like dark colors. And I'll go to the dollar store or grocery outlet and buy canned mackerel, $1 a can at the dollar store. Open that up, pour it into a Tupperware, and make what we call chum rags. And you hang them up above the food, and they will broadcast that scent for incredibly long distances. And that's how you draw those cats in. Now, I know people that say, nah, I don't use that, it doesn't work. I'm like, if it takes you 5 extra seconds to hang a chum rag above the food, and I'm here to tell you, 1,000 hours doing this, it works. It works. It'll bring those cats in from a long ways away.
Not necessarily yours.
Maybe not. And this is the other part too. If you were able, at some point we'll talk about technology and trail cameras in a minute. But there's, I rescued another cat last night named Dart, who went back to his owner this afternoon in the parking lot here. And an hour after I trapped Dart, my trail camera, I have a special kind of camera I'll talk about later. And again, you don't need this high crazy technology. You just basic stuff, and that's all you need. But within an hour of me rescuing that cat, I had trail cam footage on my phone of 5 separate cats that were there within 45 minutes after I rescued that cat, because I put chum rags out. It doesn't take you anything, and it's cheap. Do it. Now be prepared if you go out and do this, especially if you're doing rescue work, you're gonna smell like mackerel. It's like lint or cat hair. It gets on you and you can't get it off. So that's the trade-off. You're gonna smell like mackerel, and that's just how it is. I was at a restaurant one night after a trapping session a while back, and people were looking my way. Good Lord. So it is a simple thing. Yeah, it's very simple, but it works. I can't emphasize it. There are certain things that I don't propose to know everything, because I don't. But I will tell you, if there's one absolute, if you use a chum rag, it will exponentially draw cats in, probably your own. And then once they're there, and feeding, I tell people the hardest part to this whole affair is finding and keeping the cats at the spot. Finding them and keeping them there. During the early days of the Tubbs fire, I was finding that cats were wandering. They were looking for food or looking for water, but something in a cat, they have a GPS in them, and they somehow know where home is. Indoor-only cat, they figure it out. Outdoor cat, like, there's not a house within a half a square mile, and that cat knows where his house is. They just do. I don't know how, and I don't know why. It's a great mystery of science. And I'm going to deviate for a second here to accentuate that point, and that is there was a cat in Salt Lake City, Utah 2 years ago named Mittens. If anyone's ever here been to Utah, if you're coming across 80 into Salt Lake City, there's a giant mountain range that runs north and south called the Wasatch. Well, Mittens' family lived on the eastern front of the Wasatch, and on the western front of the Wasatch, Mittens' dad towed his fishing boat all the way around the Wasatch to, I think, Park City to get the boat worked on, and the mechanic called him, and hours after he dropped it, I said, I took the cover off your boat and a cat jumped out. That's Mittens. So they were, Mittens, they loved their cat, like a lot of people do. They drove back there and looked for him for days. They left flyers, they left everything, and after, I don't know, a period of time, a couple weeks, they said, what can we do? We have to get on with our lives. 6 months later, Mittens was found 3 miles from his house. 3 miles. He was chipped, and someone had found him. Mittens, it was later determined, had crossed the entire up and down range of the Wasatch in winter. This is not a lie. It's true. The vet examined him. He was emaciated. He was skinny. All of his claws were gone. His pads were worn down to flesh. He had crossed the Wasatch Range in winter. With peaks up to 9,000 feet, he did it. He didn't go around. He went up and over the top. And that cat knew where his home was. He got within 3 miles. It's astounding. So they have a homing device, and your cats may have run a goodly number of distance a goodly distance to outrun the flames before they found shelter. But somehow they come back. They don't always. Your cat may be found eventually 3 or 4 miles away from your home. But what I have found is the vast majority of the cats I rescued, I found within 3 or 4 houses of where their house burned. I just did. They know it. So that's where you need to focus. So the food and the chum rags. And put out the kibble. I like kibble because it leaves a very distinctive impression. So, because you're going to say, well, what about the raccoons, possums, skunks, and everything else that comes in there and eats all the damn food? Well, that's a reality. Pardon me?
They gotta eat too.
They got to eat too, and that's the reality of it.
Kind of question on that. We're attracting things that would like to eat smaller animals such as mountain lions and bears.
And we'll discuss that. So I've been in that burn zone at night extensively, and I have not seen a fox, or I have not seen a coyote yet. Number one killer of cats is a coyote.
We don't have them.
And I have not ever seen, and I talked to some locals that they haven't really seen them. They don't hang out here. A mountain lion's extraordinarily rare, but they're around.
Not there.
Okay, mountain lions aren't on every block, I can tell you that. A bear is harmless to a cat. A bear can't catch a cat.
Fox.
Pardon me? Foxes are harmless. I have footage after footage after footage on trail cameras of foxes and cats standing there looking at each other. Side by side, harmless. I'll roll that out, but foxes are harmless. I see them side by side. They're sort of related. They just do their thing. And so, is a mountain lion a possibility? Absolutely. Mountain lions prefer big prey. They'll do what they can, and I think that possibility is rare, but it's still there. Bears, man.
Bobcat, maybe.
Bobcats, maybe too. Yeah, and for those of you who live here, I don't live in Paradise, but I talk to a lot of people, and I have not seen a coyote. I haven't seen a sign of a coyote. So I don't know if they really prefer these areas so much. So
Coyotes are lower elevation.
yeah, they're not in the conifer forest so much. They like the lower elevation.
The
So
mountain lions are
But I
quite
see
There are
them
mountain-
over
yeah.
on the Feather River side.
yeah, I've heard there's a healthy mountain lion population in the area and bears. I have not seen a bear. I've not seen a sign of a bear. And I know how to find lions too. I've seen 7 mountain lions in my life, 7. And so anyway, they're present, but 99% of the time you wouldn't even see one because they're just so cagey. But it is a concern, a small one. So set your food up. Chum rag, critically important. And get a bowl. Put your kibble in there. Hang your chum rag. Maybe a little bit of wet food. And you're like, well, if you don't have a trail camera, and you may not right away. Cats will leave a very distinct impression, a pattern in that kibble. It's very distinctive, and it's like a scoop. So if you have a bowl, it's going to look like you took a scoop of ice cream out. It'll be a concave depression. That is a cat every single time. Every time. It's not a skunk. It's not a possum. It's not a fox. It's not a raccoon. It's a cat. Raccoons will make a mess out of everything. They flip bowls over. There's dirt. They wash their feet in it. They take a bath. They're a mess. You can tell them, you can look, yep, raccoon was here. That doesn't mean a cat wasn't there before it, but a raccoon, so if you don't have the technology right away to buy a trail camera, you can look at that impression and go, that is a cat. Now, what do you do about that? One of the fairly, I would call it affordable, and that term depends on what your income is, but you can go down to Dick's Sporting Goods around the corner and buy a trail camera for $40 or $50. All right? Now, trail cameras, like anything else you can buy, a trail camera is like a car. You want a Maserati? Or are you going to buy a 68 Volkswagen 4-speed? Right? It will get you to where you need to go. Right? You don't have to buy a fancy trail camera. I have some pretty fancy trail cameras because I spend thousands of hours doing this. And they do certain things for me. And I'll talk about that technology later. But you can go down, and I stopped in Dick's before I got here for the express reason to see what they had for trail cameras. And every model of trail camera they have is on sale. They're pretty simple to operate, and I think they had them on sale from like $49. So maybe like $49 or $39 up to $150. All of them like $30 off, $50 off, whatnot. So a trail camera is a vital tool. Is it critical? No, but it's an important tool. You can put that trail camera and set it up, and when it comes to technology, I'm sort of like a monkey trying to drive a bus. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do this. So but even I can set up a trail camera. It can be done, and I know all of you in here probably got nieces, nephews, and children who know all this stuff, and you say, feed it to them, fix that, make it good. So you have to buy good batteries, buy an SD card, maybe 4 gigabyte, program the camera, not that fancy, set it up. And what it does is it'll take pictures or video, depending how you set it, of anything that crosses that infrared beam. And you set it up, I'm sorry, I'm going to smash you in the face. You set it up can everyone still hear me okay? You set it up anywhere from 3 to 5 feet away from your food station, and just set it up and monitor it. Check it the next morning, the next day. If you can't come to the property for 2 or 3 days, it'll keep going. And you set it up and you review the footage. You come back and you, some cameras will have a viewing screen built into them, and others do not. And so you have to get a reader. And if you have a smartphone, you can go to Amazon or even like Dick's Sporting Goods, and you can get a little tiny card reader that you plug into your iPhone or your Android, and then plug the chip in, and your pictures will appear on your smartphone. And then there's also, talk about some other stuff later. If you want to buy something a little fancier, they have like standalone units that are card readers. And you go through the footage and you see what the cat's doing. If you set it up far enough away, you can see how does the cat behave? Where does it come from? Where does it go when it's done? And it gives you an opportunity to kind of see what's going on for a couple days. And then you can just set a trap. It can be very complicated, or it can be very straightforward. I've had rescues where I saw a cat, I'm gonna put a trap out. Put a trap out, drove away, 30 minutes later, cat's in the trap. And then I've had the cat that it took me approximately 70 hours of in the burn zone on this cat only to get him. 70 hours. I hope it doesn't take that long.
Question.
Pardon me?
Question. What do you recommend for mounting the camera on if everything's burned down on the site? And
I put them right on the ground.
Really?
Right on the ground.
Okay.
Just stand it up and put it right on the ground. A lot of them will come with a strap. If you can strap it on a tree and kind of angle it down, and that works too. But typically, I put mine on the ground, and if there is a reason for, yes, ma'am?
Can you talk about the importance of a cable lock as well? Because the looting that goes on up there in the burn zone.
Those of us who do this a lot have all had people steal our stuff.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So if you can afford a cable lock, a lot of these cameras will have a hole through the back, and you can slip a cable around it and put it around a tree.
It's
but if
less
you
than $20.
But if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah, you may not have anything to attach it to.
You may not have anything to attach it to, and so I just put mine on the ground. I try to disguise them so nobody can see them in case somebody does show up. But the reality is, it's a possibility, not a probability. So I wouldn't get too spun up about it, but it's something to think about if you're able to have some extra security. So again, if you can't afford a trail camera, get that food in there, get the chum rags in there, and then see what the pattern looks like. And one thing that's real important is if you're going to set a trap, be prepared that you may catch a cat that doesn't belong to you. It's going to happen. What are you going to do with it? Something you'll have to decide on. If it looks healthy, I will tell you this: I have trapped several cats in the burn zone in the last 3 weeks that were they were in islands of green. One particular place off Camino had duplexes, and like 90% of the duplexes were standing. There was green grass. It was all good. And I trapped 3 feral cats trying to get a target cat. They were all healthy. They were all little spunky, spirited fighters, and I let them all go. We left food and water. I'm not going to subject those feral cats to go into a system that they may never come out of. So they were thriving, they were fine, they had good coats, and I let them go. And that may be a decision you have to make. So the thing is you got to be prepared to, this may take a while. And the trail camera is a really good tool. It tells you if the cat's a little reticent to go in the trap, and some of the things you can do to entice it. And it'll just kind of let you see what's going on. And all I can tell you is don't give up. You know, I've had people where I help coach, and they put traps out for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, nothing. And all of a sudden, week 3, week 4, cat showed up on the camera. Holy moly! All right, so those are some things you can do that'll help you. Now, there is, as I found out in the world of trapping, there's sort of some unspoken rule like, don't you ever leave a trap unattended. Never. Because a cat can freak out and you'll scare it and hurt it, this, that, and the other. These are very, very extreme times. you may have to put a trap in overnight and leave it there. Is it the best case scenario? No, it's not. But do you want your cat back? Kitty might have to be a little uncomfortable in the trap for a while, and one way to keep them settled in the trap is to cover it as you set it. A tarp, a blanket, and when they get inside there and they get wrangled up and they're gonna freak out a little bit, some do, some don't, and then they'll go, okay, they'll settle down, it's dark, they don't like to be out in the open, they don't like to be exposed. When it comes to putting your trap on your property, cats do not like open ground. They slink around borders. That's what they like. So, and they also, if you can imagine when you get to your home, or if you've been to your home, how horrifying the smell has been. Thank God the rain has dampened that, but its smell is terrible, it's toxic. And if you imagine how bad it is for you, it's 50 times worse for cat. They don't like it, they'll tolerate it, but try to place your trap away from really bad, stinky stuff and put it in a corner, along a hedgerow, a fence, somewhere it's not out in the open. They just don't, they feel vulnerable. And so put it there, cover it, and set it, and then and check it whenever you can. Check it whenever you can. If you can leave for a couple hours and go back, or if especially you'll find out if you don't just set a trap and set a trap and catch your cat, they're going to develop patterns. I call it patterning a cat. When I've had cats where I wasn't able to just set the trap and he just goes in it all happy, it doesn't work that way most of the time. Where I monitored these cats and their activities around my traps and around where I was trying to catch them, and they start to develop patterns. Most of them will have patterns of arrival and patterns of departure. Those are clues and things that will help you. Now, every once in a while, you'll have a cat that's like Cheech and Chong. He just is random. He'll show up when he shows up. He's there at 9 o'clock one night, 4 the next morning, like someone who's always late for work, and you're like, this cat's driving me insane. I don't know what to do. So, but most cats will fall into a pattern, and that is helpful to you, because then you kind of know what the witching hour is that you're likely to catch your cat.
So the proximity of the trap to the lures, the food and
The chum rag.
chum rag.
Close by. Now, I want to add one quick thing about the chum rags. Put them in place, and if your cats, and you got the cameras, and the cats start showing up, they now know where there's food. They know where there's food, no need for a chum rag. It's getting them there and getting them to stay there for a couple days, and then, hey, they know where the food is after that. It's getting them to that spot, and they'll get comfortable and they'll come back. Yes, ma'am.
So, in determining what the pattern is, don't be discouraged if it takes a couple days or like a week.
Yes,
or
it could be.
Okay.
And I've had cats that they were like, he shows up at 9, shows up at 9, shows up at 9, nothing for 3 days. Nothing. Nothing. The cat's dead, he's gone, I don't know. And all of a sudden they're there again. But typically they have patterns of behavior, and they'll show up, and you will see if you have a cat on a camera. You can also, if you you can set the cameras to record like 10 or 20-second video clips, or you can just use picture mode, whatever works for you. But with the video mode, you can watch the pattern's behavior. Like sometimes you'll get a cat like, she'll put her head down and eat, no, back up. Down, eat. That cat is walking the hairy edge, skittish. Then you might get the other cat on the other end of the spectrum. He just waltzes up, drops his head, and just starts chowing. Not a care in the world. So those are things that are clues to help you kind of figure out what your cat's doing. And then move in, get the trap set. Some people say maybe a day or two before you set the trap, put it on site and lock it open, or just leave it closed. Because you ever seen, like, well, you've all seen your cats do this. Cat walks down the hall and sees something it's never seen before. And like, what the hell is that? You've seen those videos where you put the cucumber, whatever, like they are acutely aware of their surroundings. And if they've been coming to that food for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 days, and all of a sudden there's this big box thing there they've never seen before, they're like, what's that? They don't know what it is. So leave it there maybe a day. You know, it may not be necessary, but I'm sort of conservative about how I think they're going to behave. And I'll leave a trap there, maybe lock it open, let them know, okay, I know what this is, and then set it. And maybe a night before you want to trap, or even 2, don't give them any food. Don't give them a drop of nothing. Make sure there's nothing there, and you put the happiest, yummiest dessert, yummy type food that they like, because you all know your cats, and put it in that trap, cover it up, and then check it whenever you can. I can say that once you're because people like, they want to know, they want to know, they want to know. Once you set the trap, and I would set it right before dark, and I'd back out of there and do not disturb the area. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. When I was working the car fire last year, I was trying to help a family, and they had 2 cats on their property, and I told them the night before, I found your cats. I got them on camera. Sent them the pictures, like, oh my God, that's Fluffy and Dooders, or whatever their names were. And I said, they're there. I said, I'm working on it. I need you to let me do this. And the very next night, their 4 nephews are running around the property at 9 o'clock at night looking for the cat, shaking bags and flashlights. And I understand that, but I called the family. I said, you can't do that. You can't do it. You're disrupting that cat's behavior, and you're going to run the cat off. And they said, oh, we're so sorry. We're just excited. We thought we could get the cat. And like, you're not getting that cat until it goes in a trap. And in order for that cat to go in a trap, it has to be in an undisturbed, quiet, dark place where you can go in and get stuff done. And so I talked to them, and they said, okay, cool. Those 2 cats did not show up for 3 days. They didn't show up. They went, oh my God, I'm scared to death. And then they came back into a pattern, and eventually they were captured. So try not to disturb your property.
How do you catch 2 at the same time?
I don't. There are some people, like for instance, this property last night where I caught dart, within 45 minutes, 5 separate cats when they're eating. And some people will set 2 traps at once. I've never done it. I've heard people with a lot of experience, more than me, say, oh, if one cat's in the trap and they get a little excitable, the other cat's going to go, well, I'm not going in there. You're all. But sometimes 2 cats, 2 traps. It does work. And again, no absolutes here. There's no no general specific rules. So it's a trial and error thing, but you got to be patient. Keep the food up. Keep the chum rags up. Use your trail cameras, and understand that these cats are scared out of their minds, and they want to be home, but they're just skittish. They're skittish.
When you're there and you're walking around and maybe getting things set up, is it better to keep quiet or is it better to talk?
That's a great question. There's been a lot of subject on this, people chatting, that some people, and I don't, where I've had no luck, where I'll have a family come in and say, I want you to just pull up in the evening before dark, sit in a lawn chair, and just talk. Your cats know your voice. A cat can hear a normal human conversation from approximately 180 yards away. Approximately 180 yards away. No, I didn't sit there with a megaphone, but people a lot smarter than me have researched this. So their sense of hearing, their sense of smell, their sense of anything is unbelievable. I've had cats where I was watching it through a thermal imaging scope about 20 yards away and watched this cat circle my trap in the dark, and I simply shifted my weight and the cat heard it. It heard my muscles and my tendons shift and the cat would snap. It's astounding. So we don't want to disturb them. Let them get in there and do their thing. And you might find when you check your trail cameras, the cat I've seen it over and over again, circle the trap, circle the cat, circle the trap, get in the back of the trap with the food in and try and stick their fingers through there. They're like, they don't want to go in. And it may be that your cat is one of those that is shy or savvy. There are remedies for that. I will tell you this, anytime I had a cat on a property that I had it patterned and it was there and it stayed there, was coming to the food, no cat has ever gotten away from me, ever. And I had them like, nope, not going in the trap. All right, I'm going to get you my super secret squirrel food. Nope, not interested. Okay, fine. I'll give you my ultra turbo double triple secret food. Nope. Okay, damn it. Move to a bigger trap. Nope. And then those cats I were finally able to wrangle up with a drop trap. A drop trap. You remember when you were kids and you'd be in your front yard and you'd get a cardboard box with a stick and a string on it to catch birds and stuff? That is a drop trap. It is made for that. It's about 3 feet square, iron mesh, or not mesh, cage mesh with a top on it, about 14 inches tall, and it has a rod that angles down and you can attach a rope to it, or you can attach a remote trigger. I happen to have one of those. I didn't bring it with me today because, I think unless you're doing professional or not professional, because I'm not a professional, if you're doing this a lot and you run into trouble, you may have to bring in the big guns, and that's the drop trap. And I've had cats that are so tuned in, I've laid in the dirt, scrubbed myself with juniper bushes, and laid flat, and that cat still knew I was there. I didn't move a muscle. I about peed myself. and they know you're there. So I was like, okay.
They can smell
A
you.
remote trigger can be triggered from a. I trapped a cat once from 195 feet away. I watched him through a thermal imaging scope. I watched it for an hour, and the cat showed up. He slunk under there, and I went, bink, dropped over it, and it was done. That's extreme. Those measures don't have to be employed that often. If your cat won't go in the trap, it won't go in the trap. Sometimes they'll just dig in like an Alabama tick, and other times they'll just, all right, I'm hungry, I'll go in. Yes, ma'am.
Would they be more likely to go into a trap if they had a blanket that had some of their hair and smell on it, or some of your clothing with your smell on it? Would they
That has been
possibly be?
a subject of discussion many times. I don't know the answer. Can it hurt? I would say it can't hurt. Now, when people, there's many things out there on the internet, and I call it kookery. There's a lot of kooks out there to come up with stuff. I've heard everything from litter box to leave your dirty panties outside, and that'll bring them in. All manner of stuff, and the dirty litter box, put your t-shirt out. And to my knowledge, no one has ever proven that's effective. So in that case, I probably wouldn't waste my time putting my dirty panties out and let the neighbors see what my lingerie is. So you do what you think's best. But I don't know about boil it down to what is it going to take to get my animal back. So another thing about the traps, cats don't like to walk on mesh. The cage mesh material at the bottom of your trap, they'll do it. But again, there's no absolute, and every little thing you can do is adding to the probability you're getting your cat back. And some things like, well, that's so silly, that's kind of dumb. It all adds up. I'm telling you, from doing this, it adds up. I liken it to putting nails in a coffin. And that coffin, and once it's sealed up, represents, it's a silly metaphor, but my cat is the rescue of my cat, and every little thing, extra tactic I can use, every little thing I can employ is putting a nail in that coffin. Until you get enough nails in the coffin, and it's sealed, and it's game over. So little things can make a difference. The chum rags, lining the trap with some cardboard or a piece of carpet. Little things that, is it going to make a huge difference in the end? It might. Yes, sir.
We've been in the area for a while. What if they don't let us back into our area for another week or 2 weeks? I mean, it's already been a month.
I
I
know.
know a lot of us have thought about sneaking back in, but I'm worried about the penalty because I've heard about people getting arrested. I'm getting pretty sick of this.
I can tell you this. If it was me, I would have gone full-blown Rambo, and I would have snuck in there under, and I know how to hide from people. I do it for a living. And I can just tell you, I feel you. I feel you. And you have to make that decision yourself. And if you did, I wouldn't fault you. I wouldn't do it. About 20 seconds of how did you start doing this? Well, about close to a year before our fire, Tubbs fire, which happened on October 8th, I lost my indoor-only cat, and one of my cats, and he'd never been outside, and I lost him. He got out, and he vanished without a trace for 13 days. Not a trace. And it was hell on earth for me. And I have a taste of that. So I feel where you're at. You're like, my God, we got to get in there. We got to get in there. Until you can, you do what you have to do. I'm not going to tell you to go in there and knowingly break the law because I do this for a living.
You don't want to do that.
No, but if
I'm asking, is there even any chance?
I don't know because I don't follow a lot of that, but I keep hearing the zones, like zone this and zone that. You can go in. There's a curfew from 8 at night to 6 in the morning. And I know a couple days ago there was a community meeting on Tuesday, maybe, or last night, maybe, with the sheriff and the Paradise Police Chief and the Butte County Sheriff. They talked about this, and they're doing everything they can. I can tell you that huge progress has been made in that burn zone. I was in there on day 5, and it was in every sense a war zone. The parts per million on the smoke was like 700, and 260 is considered really unhealthy. And it was literally, you couldn't see 50 feet. The first week I was in there, I had no idea that when you drove up Skyway, there was this big giant canyon. And beautiful country and towering bluffs, and I didn't know it was there for a week. And so it was terrible. There was cars on the road, you were zigzagging power lines down everywhere, and it looks dramatically different today. So the point of there is I believe such good progress is being made. They're they're getting all the hazard trees out of the roads, and it doesn't look like the same place. There were traffic lights working today on Skyway. I couldn't believe it. So I can just tell you that there's so much work going on there, and they're trying to get the bulk of it done to make it safe for the residents to go back. I just know a little bit about that, and I'm hearing that the sheriff is really trying to push and get people in there as soon as he possibly can, and you can start doing the work. And it's tough. It's tough. I know. My heart is with you all, and myself, and especially when other rescuers are allowed to get in there, we're going to be helping. We're going to be helping. But there are so many cats and so many residences that and please share all this with your friends and family who have cats. Spread the word and just go in there and start helping each other and do these things.
I was one of the first responders at the shelter, and I dealt with a lot of organizations.
Are you Joy?
No, I'm Heidi, but
I know your name.
yeah, but I was involved very early on, and I was pushing for documentation and digital images to get out to the public in the very beginning. And I got a lot of, I damn near got arrested. So, I did. It was approved through NAVDAG, but it was a real obstacle. And
I know.
And I'm curious.
Trust me, I have lived it and breathed it and swirled in the controversy for 3 weeks, and it's disheartening, but we can't change it. And you can push the public officials, like, let us in there.
But so are they letting, if you were, because I know people that are really volunteering in the queue, could you rally and get in there?
I will tell you this, I am able to get in because I'm a sworn law enforcement officer. They know I'm not eluded. And at this point, I am not able to bring other people in with me.
Do you need some deputies?
Pardon me?
You need some deputies?
Do I need a posse started? Yeah, that's where you all in right now, damn it. So it's crazy making.
It's not, there's no smooth, it's not smooth out.
It's not. Even a lot of the other folks that were working with NAVDAG and some other groups, they would have hit and miss. I know I was working with another group of what I call Merry Misfits about 3 weeks ago, and we were getting in, they were getting in, they were filling out tickets and rescuing animals and getting them to the vet when they needed, getting them to the airport and getting them in the system. And then, again, I don't want to go in too much about, because it doesn't do us any good. I could sit here and rail. I could tell you stories that will curl your toes about the stuff that has gone on that shouldn't have. But we can't change what happened. All we can do is, like, let's get in there when we can.
I agree with that.
I know. Yeah.
To be honest with you, one of the best volunteers or rescuers was a gentleman who showed up, and I said he would bring in a horse trailer full of, he had seven or nine cats, 2 goats, dogs, puppies, and I said, and I looked at him, I said, how are you doing it? And I said, I think you need to make the organization. And he said, now, he reflected that, and he says, I want to do this, I want to do this, because I told him.
Yeah, I ran into a resident today. He works for he's a tree guy. He's an arborist, and he has all the stuff. And I said, "Oh, you work with?" He says, "I just sneak in here." I met him at his house today while I was trying to put some food out for his neighbor's cat. So I don't want to talk about rule breaking. You do what you see best. I'm not going to advocate. I'm not advocating that you go break the law. If somebody did surreptitiously find their way into their home, that's all I'm going to say about that. And I understand your great frustration and your great stress and anxiety that get us in there and let us get our animals back.
So, real quick, we're talking about other groups already up in there, moving around. How do we avoid collisions? I'm trying to do something looking for mine, and maybe you're in that same area.
There's
next door trying to find their
another great one. There's going to be some growing pains with this, where people are going to be crossing paths, and I've seen this in both the previous fires I worked, where I'm targeting a cat at a location, a known cat with a family, says we want our cat, and then people are sprinkling food stations or bait stations all around it. I'm like, if a cat's got a smorgasbord at his will, he's not going in the trap. So it becomes one of those things where there's going to be some organization once it opens up and everyone's allowed in, and just go with that.
So
And I understand.
So what should we do if we get to our property and there's already a trap there, or there's already food, or there's already water, or there's always chum rags?
Yeah. You're probably not going to find chum rags because I'm about one of the only few people that does it. But what I would do, I know in the past, NABDAG, I'm only working on properties myself, the people who, or I have their addresses and I'm in contact with those people, so they know I'm there. But if you find stuff there, then what I would do, I think the best practice would be, obviously don't steal their stuff, but if there was a trap, close it. There may not be. If there's a food station, remove the food and leave a note. Leave a note, say, I'm the resident, I am actively trapping to catch my cat, please don't put food here. I did that 2 weeks ago at a place off of Edgewood where someone had left food and I said, please don't leave food here, an active trapping effort in progress. And that can be the thing, and you'll see, that's a great point, you want to take like a 5-minute break or so? People can get a drink of water or something and come back in like 5 or 10?
Water?
I mean, okay, we'll get started again. A couple things. Someone had asked me to bring up, if you catch a cat and it's not your cat, what do you do with it? Is it possibly someone else's cat who they're missing?
Yep.
Then you got to make it. You have a decision to make. And if you are going to have that cat and it's not yours, we would encourage you to bring it to VCA Valley Oak. At this point, things are fluid. They're changing. I know right now there is the animal shelter at Del Oro. Is one of the temporary shelters. I believe it's being run now by ASPCA, as I understand.
Yes.
The Chico Airport shelter is, I don't know who's running that, but I believe that's still up and running. There was a little bit, pardon me?
No, it's done.
It's merging with Del Mar. Okay, and I've heard they're going to try and find one place to put the animals.
In Oroville, the old dealership is where they're moving a temporary 60-day shelter.
Try to consolidate.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly
that's
what
where
they're
you'd bring them. And if it's real important, they're going to need to know, because you may be helping another family. Where exactly did you get that cat? Your address? And what date? Take pictures of it. This happened early on. Yes, sir.
You yelled out something after you said take a picture.
Take a picture of the intake papers.
Okay.
Post it all on the lost and found. Everything that you have on that cat, so we do not lose that cat. You know what I mean?
How do we post it on the Lost and Found?
Lost and Found for the Paradise Lost and Found website.
What's the address? We don't.
I'm told that is much improved, and there's safeguards in place so that does not happen. But getting back to the original part of, if you trap another cat, you have to make a decision if you want to try to maybe help another family and bring that cat in so they can get in the system. All right. Some cats are pretty savvy and they can make it through the winter and they're going to do well. Other cats are just not going to do well. So I think it's part of it. And if you do trap a cat that's not yours, that is a good venue to do that. Clearly, if the cat is injured or in bad health, take it straight to VCA Valley Oak, which is on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. They're in the under Google, and that's someone else wanted to bring that up, and you know, because your neighbor or someone down the street may find your cat. And that's another thing. I mean, you all have lives that have been turned upside down. You're trying to figure out insurance and housing, and what am I going to do? Do the best you can. Be engaged with the people who live around you, who I'm sure are missing animals too, and just hand stuff, talk to them. They may get your cat 2 blocks down the road, you just don't know. So real quickly, if you'd like, I can go over a little bit of equipment stuff, and it's real straightforward. So I brought 3 traps. Is anybody here just has never messed with these before or not familiar with them? Raise your hand if you're not. Okay, so once you are, they're not that complicated. So I'm going to show you this one here.
That's a standard trap you'll buy.
This is about a normal cat-sized trap. There's that fat, I call that the fat cat trap for cats that aren't necessarily. So how this works is you raise this bar up. And all traps work differently. This one is made by one company, but they pretty much work the same. So you see this plate at the bottom? once you set the trap, what you do, put your cardboard in, put the food in the back. This one's kind of nice because the mesh is too small for little Felix to get his little piggies in there. So if he wants the food, he's got to come in the trap. And when they walk in and they step on this trip plate, the trap, they're secure. This type of trap is pretty secure. It's not a lot of bells and whistles. This is this one costs about $60 or $70, and then I have a cheaper version of that because I know money's money, and I've rescued a lot of cats. This is a Volkswagen 4-speed 68 trap, right? I have Ferrari traps in my truck that are much bigger and cost more money. They're heavy duty because they get used forever. This will work just fine. It works just like that other trap. You can buy it at Tractor Supply for like $28. $28. No bells and whistles. Now I will tell you this. Let's talk about trapping. At some point, some of you are going to encounter a raccoon or a skunk. Or a possum. Move slow, talk to Mr. Skunk, and gently drape the trap. Gently and in slow motion with a blanket. Something hopefully this thick. And keep it very quiet and mellow. I mean like this. And you will not get sprayed. If you slip up, if you hiccup, if you cough, if you do anything, the skunk's going to let loose. And it's going to get stinky. Raccoons? Yeah, I hear you there. Raccoons are notorious. Like, I told you about fighting like the third monkey on the Ramp of Noah's Ark. If a raccoon gets in a trap and it's one of these, a Volkswagen, it'll tear this trap to pieces and it will be rendered useless. A heavy-duty trap, a raccoon can't hurt. So that's another thing to monitor traps. If you can, not leave them overnight. This is worst case scenario. And that's another thing too. If you have a trail camera, $50 down the road, you can monitor what sort of critters are showing up, and then you can at least get an idea of what's going on. I have not seen a possum. Are possums common up on the mountain?
Yeah.
Are they real common?
I was trying to trap something for a science class.
Yeah, they're not real common they're crazy common where I live. They're everywhere. And they're harmless. They're stinky, they got big nasty teeth, and they smell. The possums, you just open up the cage and they're like, what's going on? Do the same thing when it's time to release the skunk. You got the blanket. You can raise your traps up. Like this one, you can raise it up. Remember, you're in this zen-like state. And just step back, blanket covered, and the skunk goes blah, 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 and wanders out. The raccoon will take off. You may even catch a fox. Catch a fox, you might snarl and growl. You open that up and he's like, right out of the starting blocks. They're gone, you won't see him again.
But don't forget,
and a lot of times,
fox and raccoon are rabies vectors.
Pardon me?
Fox and raccoon are rabies vectors. Don't mess with them.
Yeah, if you get bit, you got to get the shots. You don't want them. Don't do it. Just be careful. Be careful.
Does that come up pretty easy, like you had a rope tied on you?
Pardon me?
Does it come up very easy? Because I don't want to get close to the skunk.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is if you have this whole thing covered and the skunk comes in it, it's all covered, so you have a barrier between you and the skunk, and you just gently lift it. And I've done it several times where this trap doesn't have this one. This one here has a little thing I can wrap it around, where you just lock it open, quietly and gently, and step away. So that's it. Wildlife. It's critically important when you are going to trap. Either keep it covered if you have to leave it, and then that cover keeps them calm, right? Because they get spun out real fast, so it keeps them calm. So that's trapping. They like the other thing too. You set your trap, test it at least twice. Put your finger through the trigger plate or through the mesh and hit the trigger plate or with a stick at least twice and make sure it's working. You do not want this to fail. If they get out and it's a failure, then you've kind of gone backwards. It's going to take a little bit of time to get them back into that habit where they'll go in the trap. And then there's this big feller here. This one is obviously for bigger. This works a little differently. It has a couple of rings. They come up, but it has the same trick plate like the other one. You flip a little lever here. That goes in, hits the trigger plate, and then this drops and these rings slide down. The only downfall to a trap like this, and there's a company called True Cat that makes very good traps, and theirs are like this. Here's the problem. If you're in a predator-prone area, and a cat is in the trap, and a predator shows up and they want to monkey with this, flip it upside down in the trap. Something to think about. Not a big deal around here. I'm not terribly worried about predators, but you don't know. That's a limitation of a trap like this. So now, those versions, you can turn them upside down, flip them, and you're pretty much not going to get in there. About 800 pounds right there. So that's the trap. Any questions on the traps? They're pretty straightforward. A couple things. Again, set them in perimeters along corridors. They don't put them out in the open. Cover them up. Get fresh bait in them. Check them. Cover them with carpet. Monitor them if you can. And then, if you have trail cameras, all I have a special kind of camera, and this is for those of you who would be rescuers, people who have experience doing this. If there's any way you can get a hold of this kind of trail camera, it's a texting trail, it's wireless. So I can set this, and as long as there's a signal on this and a signal on my phone, this will send me pictures in real time from where I have this set up on a trap, on a bait station, and it'll tell me what's going on right now. In fact, I rescued a cat from a residence last night, and I have a texting camera there right now, and while we've been sitting here talking, that camera has been sending me non-stop pictures on my phone. I have 45 pictures. You see all the cats. It tells you the date, the time. This is all tonight. And these cats are showing up, and I can see what they're doing. I can see what they're going on right now. Whether I don't have a trap set up there, I just have food, and I can see what's going on. This is ultra secret squirrel high-tech stuff. You don't need this. You don't need it. I've spent a lot of money and had people help me so that me doing this, where I may be trying to monitor 3 or 4 traps a night, and I can set these up, and I know what's going on right now. You do not need this, and I'm not trying to impart this on you, but this is some of the technology that's out there. The run-of-the-mill $40 to $80 camera at Dick's Sporting Goods or Sportsman's Warehouse or Amazon even, they got everything under the sun. Get it, play with it at home a little bit, set it up, and it'll work just fine for you. You don't need this fancy stuff. Now, something, especially for those of you who are going to be doing this rescue in the burn zone, I have never heard of someone doing this. I'm sure someone has. But a large part of my career has been spent hunting human beings in the woods. Mexican drug cartel dope growers all over Northern California. I've hunted them for years. I know how to hunt humans, and I use technology that helps me and the people I work with do that. And one of the tools that I started playing with last year with the Tubbs fire that turned into my most important tool. This is a thermal imaging optic. It's not night vision. Night vision enhances whatever ambient light is there, and it's very limited on how to find cats. This detects heat signatures. Anyone watch that movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Remember that creature? It saw in thermal. You saw that. Remember the thermal? And it had that big gun on its shoulder. It saw in thermal imaging, and that's what this does. So I have used this, and I have found, I cannot tell you how many cats I have found with this scope. The most famous cat I rescued with this scope was last year at the Tubbs fire, and this is a story for the book. I think the day after Thanksgiving last year, actually the Thanksgiving, I was out in the burn zone at 2 in the morning in an area called Fountain Grove. Beautiful luxury homes in the hills, this country. And I was walking down this road. I decided, I don't know what made me do it, I'm going to walk down this cul-de-sac. And I was walking with my thermal imaging scope, and I detected the unmistakable, brilliant, white, hot heat signature of a cat sleeping in a pile of rocks. If I had been using a flashlight, I never would have seen that cat because he was sleeping. A flashlight's a great alternative. If you were in the business and you want to look for your cat out at night, don't crash. Drive 3 or 4 miles an hour out the window with your flashlight. This is an $80 flashlight or a $60 flashlight, whatever you got. the light technology is crazy. The batteries are almost dead, but this is 1,000 lumens. The thermal camera you can buy on eBay, on Amazon. You can buy them anywhere. I will tell you this: I'm not suggesting that you folks who are hunting unless you have the funds to do it. This scope is sort of like a Toyota Corolla of thermal imaging scopes. And when it was new, last year's model, it was $2,500, and this is the Corolla model. They go all the way up to $50,000. Yes, like I said, I was able to purchase this for $1,200 because I talked the seller down, and it works really well. I'm trying to get a grant from the company that makes these things to give me a better one. But what this does, and this works because if it's really cold outside and everything's cold and the cats are warm-blooded, and you will find they're sick, you will see them. You'll see them. And the last few weeks I've been up here where it got really cold and was raining, and I probably located 50 cats with this in broad daylight. You will not see them. They're camouflaged. They're burned. You can't see them. And I have a good eye. I have a trained eye to find cats. And I would do this, and I'll be out like on Billy Road or Pearson or Wagstaff or Elliott or wherever there's not much going on, and I'm hanging out the window in broad daylight, and I can keep both my eyes open, and my buddy's in the front seat, make sure I don't crash. But I'm going really slow, and I'm just scanning with this scope. And the moment I see hit signature in daylight, I will stop, and I will identify where it's at, and I'll throw up my binoculars, and I will verify what it is. And I found over 50 cats, just seen them, maybe not necessarily saved them, but I've located over 50 cats. I found one today that I'd never seen before driving by a residence over and over again. I found it today in broad daylight. And I never, ever would have seen that cat without this scope. So for those of you who are going to be doing some rescue stuff, it's kind of like you get what you pay for. This is a entry model. This is like an entry level model, and it's $1,200 to $1,500. So I'm not saying you folks should do that, but it's the kind of technology that's out there that can help us who are doing this a lot, going from res to res. So I'll be writing in my notebook. I got to go from, I got to go from 1357 Wagstaff over to 5532 Edgewood, and I punch in my navigation in my truck, and when I'm driving, I'm hanging out the window, driving slow, and I'm looking for cats on the way. So it's, again, just technology that's out there, and again, more geared for folks who don't have a lot of money, who aren't doing this, helping a lot of people. And so it's just stuff that's out there, and you don't need a lot of fancy stuff, right? You don't need a lot of fancy anything, right? The Volkswagen 4-Speed will get you to the same place, right? As the Maserati or the Porsche, whatever. So I don't want to get like too geeked out on the gear, but make sure you have extra batteries. If you can get a trail camera and buy 2 SD cards, you can. If you're not at the house all the time, you can go to the house, take the one out that was there overnight, put a fresh one in, and go home and review the footage for later. And it can work that way. I know we're done.
When you're seeing cats in the daylight, have you been taking photos of them? Some people.
It happens so fast I can't get photos of them. Now I'm going to start doing that. I did this in the Tubbs fire last year. I had a spotting scope that I attached my cell phone to, and if I could get a cat to sit still long enough, I would snap a photo, a shot, and I'm going to start doing that again. And it's not a bad idea, but again, these cats are cagey, they're skittish, they're scared. Do not expect them to just show themselves up. You may have to work, and they're going to come out at night. And you set your base station up. You don't skip these little steps that add up to success. And I want to double check something, make sure that anybody have any questions, feel free. I'm here. I don't have all the answers, and I can do the best I can. I know a lot of people are trying to help you.